Thou who hast led us this far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us through the light. Keep us forever in the path we pray.
Straight from the places our God where we met thee. Bless our hearts, struck with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shall we leave our land? May we forever stand true to our God, true to our Lift every voice and sing.
Every voice and sing, till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of bliss.
Lift every voice and sing a
As the listening skies, let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
every voice and sing.
Sing your song,
Every voice and sing a song.
sing your song.
Every voice and sing a song. Listen the rising sun. Our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stormy the road we trod, bitter the chance we saw. Those in the days when one storm has gone, yet with the steady beat and not a weary soul, come to the place for which our fathers died. We have come, oh we have come, oh away that the tears have been watered. We have come, tread deep, our path to the light of the slaughter, out of the gloomy past. So now we stand at last, where the white flame of a bright star is cast.
God of our wearies, God of our silent tears, thou who hast led us this far on the way, thou who hast by keep us forever in the path we pray.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Christmas season Freedom Fund gathering hosted by the Greater Indianapolis NAACP. On behalf of the branch leaders, we send holiday greetings to you all. We wish we could gather in person, but our top priority, of course, is your safety during the pandemic. My name is Kenny Parker, and I'll be your host for the evening. Thank you for joining us tonight to recognize local leaders and rededicate ourselves to the cause of civil rights. Throughout the evening, various NAACP board members, branch friends, and elected officials will share remarks to celebrate the advancement of civil rights and our history. Thanks to Governor Eric Holcomb, Congressman Andre Carson, and Mayor Joe Hogsett for sharing greetings with us, along with all elected officials watching tonight. Please let us know you are out there by sharing a greeting on our Facebook or YouTube feeds. Also, send a warm welcome to the local NAACP officers and executive committee members who are with us tonight. We'll get started with an invocation by Pastor Ivan Douglas Hicks, Branch Vice President, and remarks by Crystal Ratcliffe, Branch President, followed by other special guests.
Let us pray. Eternal God, we thank you for the NAACP. We thank you for Crystal Ratcliffe and for the leadership of this local branch. We ask that you might continue to bless us. We thank you for the mission of the NAACP that continues to respond to the needs of those that have been treated unfairly. We ask that you might continue to use us, provide us with energy. We thank you for the spirit of volunteerism that is overwhelming within our organization. And as we come to this Freedom Fund banquet, we ask that you might bless all that are participating. We ask that you might continue to work within us and through us. We want to hear words of direction and guidance that come from Brother Ben Jealous. We ask that you might speak through him and that you might then amalgam our hearts, combine our efforts, that we might continue to provide the leadership necessary to produce wonderful results and to vanguard the causes of those that need our guidance, our direction, our strength, and our strategy. We ask that you might continue to allow us to fight for those that cannot easily fight for themselves. We ask, God, right now that you might bless us, that we might continue to grow to be the organization that you have called us to be. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray. And those who agree may say, amen.
Thank you, Pastor Hicks, for your words of prayer. Good evening and welcome. On behalf of the Greater Indianapolis NAACP, I send holiday greetings to you all. We have gone through some difficult times in the past 2 years. I suspect all of us have lost friends, co-workers, or family members to COVID. Many lost their jobs or lost hope in the future. We've been cut off from the ones we love the most. But we didn't stop doing our work. Despite many challenges, your NAACP branch has been working on important issues facing our community. We've drawn attention to youth violence and child abuse through virtual forums hosted by our Women in the NAACP committee. We've worked with schools, allies, state officials, and the Marion County Health Department to reduce and prevent childhood lead poisoning, which handicaps children for life. We've called out some of the Indianapolis' biggest cultural institutions, hospital systems, school systems, and local police departments to respect and protect Black lives. We worked with a statewide coalition to pass police reform legislation that restricts police chokeholds and requires de-escalation training. Your Greater Indianapolis branch NAACP has been working on all of these issues. We are here, and we will continue to be here. The one thing we know is we can't stop now. I want to thank the officers and executive committee for all they've done to keep our organization moving forward. Also, thank you to our sponsors. I am sorry we can't gather in person this year due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, but I hope you will enjoy this virtual program. We look forward to gathering together again in person next year. Thank you again for your support.
Congratulations to the Greater Indianapolis NAACP on its 109th year in Indianapolis. For over a century, this institution has stood up to racism, bigotry, and discrimination wherever it can be found. 100 years ago, that meant taking on the violence and the corruption wrought by the Ku Klux Klan in Indiana. Today, the Greater Indianapolis NAACP continues its mission for equal rights and a more equitable community. I share their goal. My administration is striving to create one city, working together to forge a path to prosperity for every resident in Marion County, in every Marion County zip code. I'm proud the City of Indianapolis is a regular partner of the NAACP, and I am likewise grateful to know that this organization will hold my administration and other city departments accountable to achieve our mutual goals. We as a city need institutions like this one, and I will always encourage Indianapolis residents to support it. Thank you very much.
Hello, it's Governor Eric Holcomb, and I'm so honored to join you all, virtually I know, but to join you nevertheless tonight. For more than a century, the NAACP has worked to ensure equal rights and opportunities across our great state and in our great capital city. And your work couldn't be more important or more timely. So thank you for what you do, day in and day out, and for your partnership alongside a broad bipartisan coalition in support of House Enrolled Act 1006, which I was so proud to sign into law earlier this year. This new law is a careful balance that ensures high standards for our state law enforcement officers, and to make sure they're reflected and supported and encouraged by law. And we're funding improvements to ensure all who join the ranks of those who serve us in uniform are properly trained and equipped and resourced. And we're promoting transparency and accountability in this profession. And it's, of course, what the public deserves. And alongside you, we're focused on busting every barrier we confront, which is why I've appointed our state's first Chief Equity, Inclusion, and Opportunity Officer. And together with you, our dynamic team of leaders across multiple agencies are hard at work to bring greater equity to your state government and the services you entrust us to provide. Because our vision of one Indiana for all is about creating more pathways for personal prosperity and greater opportunities for both safety and success. So every Hoosier here in Indianapolis and in every corner of our state can build their dreams and write their success story right here in the great state of Indiana. So thank you for all you do to help make that a reality.
Thank you, Governor Holcomb and Mayor Hogsett, for being a part of such an important event this evening. Now I'd like to introduce someone near and dear to all of our hearts, but especially mine, my wife, Sandra Parker, who is the ACSO Committee Chair.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Parker, and I have been the ACSO Chairperson for the Greater Indianapolis Branch, number 3053, for the past 10 years at least. But I want to tell you a little bit more about what ACSO means. First of all, it stands for Academic, Cultural, Technological, Scientific Olympics. Vernon Jarrett presented this concept in 1976 for ACSO and Olympics of the Mind to the DeSalle Museum of African American History. And in 1977, the NAACP Board of Directors adopted a resolution to accept ACSO as an official sponsored NAACP Youth Achievement Program that would be sponsored by local NAACP units. And they would conduct an annual local competition and bring a contingency of gold medalists to the annual national ACSO competition. In 1978, the first national ACSO competition was held in Portland, Oregon, with only 7 cities participating: Atlanta, Baltimore, Chicago, Kansas City, Los Angeles, New Orleans, and St. Louis. Now over 200 units participate in this annual program. I have had many young people to go on and do things on a national level, such as winner Brian Thompson was recently on the Academy Awards, playing behind her. And I have students that audition and get parts in New York, on Broadway, and other activities all across these United States. I first heard about the ACSO program because my son in the early 90s won the local competition playing his saxophone. And at 41, he's in a band and still plays his saxophone. This past year, we had to have the competition virtually, and we had 1 gold medalist, but she won in 2 areas. She won in poetry written and poetry performance. Her name is Jordan Jones, and she is a senior at Ben Davis High School. Congratulations to this outstanding young lady for her competition during a pandemic.
Hi, my name is Jordan Jones, and I represent the Greater Indianapolis Branch 3053, and the name of my spoken word is "The Black Woman is the Angriest Person in America." What if I were white? What if I drank Starbucks every day, wore them creased Air Forces, scrunchies all on my wrists but never in my hair, and had that blonde hair, blue eye, Becky from around the way type of look? What if I then stood up for what I believed in? Couldn't care less about what anybody else said and clapped my hands in every argument just like the black girls do? Or wore my hair in braids and talk loud just like the black girls do? Or wasn't afraid to tell you anything that was on my mind at any given time just like the black girls do? Yo, what is that even supposed to mean? Anyways, what if I did all of this, but I was white? Then would the white woman be the angriest person in America? Or would I be just a woman, just angry, just white? I can't answer this because it's exactly what I'm not. I'm black, I'm a woman, and I am angry. I'm highly upset. Let me tell you, I'm angry about police brutality. More and more mothers are spending money on caskets and funeral programs instead of birthday parties and college plans. Good police, they're hard to find. They tell us to trust them, but they keep targeting my kind. I'm mad that the men in the media highlights the females. They yell, period, and argue and yell and cuss, but somehow forget the ones that run multi-million-dollar companies and God they trust, literally living their best lives. But when I try to get my point across, they already see the stereotype leading them to treat me with so little respect. I don't even want it anymore. I'm angry and I'm mad. Mad that my siblings see the blonde hair, blue eye. It's what they see commercialized, their interpretation of beauty. But when a white girl gets fillers in her lips and below her hips, it's a trend. I'm mad that they treat black like it's a trend. The cornrows and box braids seem casual and classy when Kim Kardashian wore them. Oh, I thought they were ghetto. My fault. They tell me black girl magic isn't real. Well, baby, what else could it be than magic when the sun bites off our faces and colors not even named yet, and glows that copy the sun and songs not even played yet? I'm mad that I can't talk this way or that way or too loud. Well, then it's an attitude. But if I talk just right enough, no, I mean just white enough, they say, you're not the average black girl. The average? What? Well, maybe I'm talking loud, because if I talk any other way, you don't hear me. Hear me over the subliminal racist comments that aren't racist because you didn't say the N-word. I'm mad that there's less women of color in high-income jobs, and I'm mad that I can't even get a high-income job because I am a black woman. I'm angry and I'm mad and I'm tired of the problems, oppression, and the weight we bear. I bear as a woman of color living in America, home of the free, home of the brave. Well, God, I can't be that brave. So if I can't even say hi too strong, or am I here in its natural state? And what do you mean? Of course I'm angry. Why aren't you? Thank you.
I would also like to thank a very important person who was with the AXO program for our branch before I got there, turned it over to me, but she never left my side. She has been a mentor. She has been a judge. This lady is still teaching. She's a professor at IUPUI, teaching drama and African American studies. So I would like to award her with an Outstanding Lifetime Achievement Award to Dr. Regina Turner Barclay and say thank you to this wonderful lady. And those of you that have young people that you think would be outstanding in this program, they must be in 9th through 12th grade. They can go to our website for an application, www.ndnaacp.org. Remember, www.ndnaacp.org, and get an application. Our competition date will be announced later, and you can return to that website for more information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. We are all proud of you for representing Indianapolis at the National AXO competition this year. The arts are so important, and we are glad to have you here tonight to showcase that. Next, we'll hear from Vop Osili, President of the Indianapolis City County Council, and our Congressman, Andre Carson.
Good evening. I'm truly honored to take part in what I've long considered to be one of our city's most sanctified and celebratory nights, the Greater Indianapolis NAACP Freedom Fund event. I can think of no better way to begin the season of gift giving than by sharing the gift of fellowship with each of you, applauding the gifts that Steve, Noah, Alan, and Molly have so generously bestowed upon our community. Of course, it's hard to imagine that we'd be celebrating tonight's honorees if not for the 109 years of work the Greater Indianapolis NAACP has given this city. 109 years of literal blood, sweat, and tears, fighting to advance the cause of civil and human rights in Indianapolis and across America, of challenging us to build and become a truly equitable community. And as we know, they're not stopping now. None of us can. We're living through another gift. This moment when racial equity feels maybe not within reach, but certainly within view. So we can't stop and won't stop until the reality of racial equity is not just within view, not just in hand, not even fully under our feet. We can't stop until racial equity permeates the very air that we breathe and the water that we drink, literally in the form of clean air and safe water. We can't stop until it resides within us and our homes, our schools, and health centers, until it's so integrated into our public systems that propagate and sustain an equitable society as efficiently and effectively as they have until now proliferated inequity. And that, my friends, is not just the work of the NAACP, but of each of us. To paraphrase a saying from our Jewish brothers and sisters, freedom is within our grasp, and the NAACP reminds us that we need to reach. Steve, Noah, Alan, and Molly remind us that we need to reach, that we must keep reaching. My congratulations to them, and my sincere thanks to the Greater Indianapolis NAACP and to each of you.
Hello, hello, hello. This is your friend and brother, Congressman Andre Carson. I'm honored to commend the Greater Indianapolis NAACP on all of the work that you do to advance civil rights in our community. The work that you have done in the last year alone is tremendous, and I'm pleased to call you a very steadfast partner in our efforts to uplift the Black community in Indiana and across our nation. Unfortunately, there's a long list of injustices and inequalities that still have to be addressed, from police brutality to voting rights to long-standing health inequalities and so much more. The work ahead, it feels insurmountable, but fortunately, we stand on the shoulders of giants who have endured centuries of bondage and unspeakable cruelty and still kept marching forward. Now, it is our turn to keep marching in honor of them and on behalf of the next generation who will inherit this country from us. Thanks to the amazing efforts of groups like the NAACP, we're making progress in the fight for equality. With your partnership, I'm working tirelessly in Congress to enact much-needed reforms. Just this year, the House passed landmark bills like the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, both of which I was honored to vote for and co-sponsor. Now, we have to continue urging our Senate colleagues to do the right thing and pass these laws so they can help move our country forward. I will never stop fighting for the rights of Black Hoosiers and all Black Americans. And together, we will create a great community that so many have envisioned. Thank you, and keep up the great work.
Hello, I'm Dr. Virginia Kane, Director and Chief Medical Officer of the Marion County Public Health Department. Congratulations to the Greater Indianapolis NAACP's selection of 4 leaders in the Black community who are being honored at its annual Christmas Freedom Fun event. For over a century, you have worked tirelessly to ensure the political, education, social, and economic equality rights for all persons, and to eliminate race-based discrimination. Over the past 2 years, COVID-19 has taken a toll on our community. Especially hard hit was the Black community. Black residents of Marion County have tested positive for COVID-19 at a rate nearly twice that of white residents. Black residents of Marion County are more likely to be in situations where they could contract COVID-19, working in frontline occupations, or living in more crowded housing. They are more likely to experience underlying conditions that can increase the severity of COVID-19 cases. And some Black residents can have a harder time than white residents assessing care due to a lack of health insurance and other factors. The disparities reach beyond health impacts. The difficulty of living through social distancing and a pandemic can hit Black individuals harder too, since they tend to have lower access to resources such as grocery stores. The economic impacts of this crisis falls disproportionately on Black residents. Unemployment was already higher for Blacks than for whites, and it's rising faster as thousands in Marion County lose their jobs. Inequity in educational attainment makes it difficult for many Black workers to find employment, let alone obtain a living wage. It has been a pleasure to work with the NAACP in addressing the disparities that we face. As a health officer of Marion County, I pledge that I will continue to address the health inequalities. Only with a unified community effort can we make substantial advances in the progress to eliminating health disparities.
far on the way. Thou who hast by thy might led us through the light, keep us forever in the.
Thank you, President Osley, Congressman Carson, and our gracious sponsors. We couldn't do our work without the financial support of our sponsors and all of you. Now let's welcome our keynote speaker, former National NAAC President and CEO Ben Jealous. Ben is now CEO of People for the American Way, an organization fighting to stop hate and defend democracy. Later, Ben will be answering your questions. Please leave a question and comments on your Facebook page or YouTube channel. You can find those links on our website at indynaacp.org. Ben, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Tell us about your personal journey and how you came to lead the NAACP from 2008 to 2013.
Sure. You know, I was born into a NAACP family, not just a civil rights family, but an NAACP family. I'm the fifth generation of my family to belong to the organization. My grandmother, who's the oldest member of Delta Sigma Theta in the country, she's 105 years old, granddaughter of slaves, was a third generation member. And she raised each of us, her daughter, my mom, and her grandchildren to stay in this fight. My mom was 12 when she sued her high school, and 15 when she desegregated it. The lawsuit was one of the feeder cases into Brown versus Board. My mom was one of the first 10 black girls to go all the way through Western High School for Girls in Baltimore. My father grew up in Maine, joined the Civil Rights Movement when he was 15 as a member of the Congress of Racial Equality, a very different organization then than it is now, under the young James Farmer. And he really impressed my mom's mother when he was one of the few whites to go to jail in Baltimore for desegregating the city. And so when you're raised in a family like that, civil rights, it's not just in your blood, it's in your daily lives. Growing up, as I did, split between Northern California and West Baltimore, my school years in Northern California were spent protesting with the United Farm Workers when I was young. And my summers in West Baltimore were spent with my grandparents' friends and families who had all been, many of the lawyers, for instance, and the judges in that circle had been active on early 20th century civil rights cases, including on the cases leading into Brown. For me, though, it was, in fact, I think, it was Ben Chavis when I was 18 years old, who put out a very clear call for us to continue the work in a way that uplifted the poor in our community too. When President Obama, when we all worked so hard, and President Obama became president in 2008, 48% of the black community was in poverty. Exact same percentage that was in poverty 40 years before that when Martin Luther King was assassinated. And so my life, my life's work has really been about those issues that are at the nexus of our ongoing effort to win civil and human rights for all in this country and to end poverty. And that was the work of my grandmother too, and my parents. That we, fundamentally, our victories aren't complete until we end poverty in this country too.
Tell us about your work now at People for the American Way. What are your priorities?
Our priorities are public safety and democracy. After the George Floyd riots, it became clear, after the uprisings, it became clear that we needed a strategy to actually ensure that we transform public safety in this country. It's not enough to talk about police reform. We actually need to make sure that we create a situation in which everybody in our society can be truly safe. And so we have created a strategy which has begun in Ithaca, New York. College towns are often, frankly, the best places to start with new ideas for public safety, of creating public safety departments that are led by civilians, in which there are two divisions, a police division, an armed division, and a social worker division, because half of modern policing is social work. And the Isaiah Brown case, the gender fluid individual who was gunned down on their front lawn by the same police officer who had just given them a ride home when they called for a ride back to their disabled vehicle. It was a reminder that if you send somebody who's not trained in social work, but is trained to shoot to kill, to do social work, very bad things can happen. But if you can imagine sending a social worker to that situation, well, Isaiah Brown would very much be alive today. On the democracy front, we are very much focused on ensuring that voting rights legislation is passed. It's always been the only antidote that we've ever had. Frederick Douglass understood that in the 19th century. John Lewis understood that in the 20th century, and Ms. Baker and so many others made it very clear that the only antidote to state-level voter suppression laws is strong federal voting rights legislation. And here we are in the 21st century, and our voting rights protections have been gutted, and we're paying a severe price across the country for that. And so we have mounted a campaign to really push President Biden, because the only way that we're going to get voting rights legislation through in this moment is if there's a carve out in the filibuster. The filibuster is either nixed, it's gotten rid of, or it's fixed. A carve out is made. The history of the 160 carve outs in the filibuster that have been made before, what it shows us is that it really is unlikely to happen unless the president of these United States makes it clear to his party that they must clear the way for an up or down vote. Vice President Kamala Harris has helped ensure that we have the 51 votes in the Senate for strong federal voting rights legislation, both Senate Bill 1 and H.R. 4. Now we need President Joe Biden to make it clear to his party that they just have to do whatever it takes to clear a path, because we have the 51 votes. We urgently need the legislation passed. At the same time, the vaccine, if you will, not the cure. The cure is strong federal voting rights legislation. The vaccine against voter suppression is massive voter turnout. And at the same time, we at People for the American Way built and maintained the African American Ministers Leadership Conference now for more than 25 years. It's the organization was founded by an alkalate of the NAACP's Reverend Dr. J.C. Hope. It was founded by Reverend Tim McDonald, who grew up in that church in Bismarck that Reverend Dr. J.C. Hope used to lead. And he's also the one that created the Souls to the Polls campaign that the NAACP adopted. And those churches today, the 600 Black churches are part of the African American Ministers Leadership Conference, the 2,400 ministers beyond the 600 pastors, lead an effort called Defend the Black Vote, where we use peer-to-peer texting to really, frankly, target new voters and also the lost Obama voters, disproportionately Black men who voted twice for Obama and then didn't vote again, to make sure that they turn out. And what we found is that by using peer-to-peer texting, we can reach 90% of them, 90% of texts get open. And that even 20% of them text back asking for help, figuring out how to find their polling place. And that's how we contribute to the broader effort that the NAACP and so many other organizations help lead, to make sure that we're not just pushing to pass voting rights legislation, but we're also helping to turn out hundreds of thousands of voters across this country.
Can you talk about the recent verdicts in Wisconsin and Georgia, both involving white men conducting vigilante killings on the streets? What do they tell us about America's justice system?
Very heartened by the decisions in Charlotte and down in Bismarck, down in Georgia. See predominantly white, overwhelmingly white. Bismarck, one black on the jury. Juries, do justice in those cases was a very powerful sign that the people of this country are ready to move forward in very important ways. Even many times, the people are more prepared than law enforcement itself. It shouldn't require protests to get a prosecution, but that was the case in Bismarck. 75 days before charges were brought, only brought because video was released, protests ensued. It should not take protests to get a prosecution. And video shouldn't be required for a verdict. Still, despite the obstruction of the local prosecutor, ultimately a prosecutor from a different county was brought in. The local jury did the right thing. The Rittenhouse case is deeply disturbing. I think Colin Kaepernick put it best when he, paraphrasing, said that a system built on white supremacy just exonerated a white supremacist for being a white supremacist, for using the violence of the white supremacist system to prosecute his ideology. And we should all be worried. But we cannot afford to lose sight of the victories in Bismarck and in Charlottesville. They sent a signal that quite frankly, our country is moving forward in important ways. It's often the case in the civil rights movement that, you take a step back and then two steps forward. And we saw all that in 1 week.
Racial justice and racial equity have been at the forefront in the last couple of years. What do you see as our community's biggest priorities in these times?
Our biggest priority must be to make sure that our children are certain that they will have the opportunity to have a better future than we did. That really is the legacy of Black leadership across the decades and the centuries, that every generation has made sure, since the end of slavery, and in many ways, generations before that, if you really look at what was happening in our communities throughout the early 19th century, that every generation has made sure that the next generation will have greater opportunities than it had. Now, the next generation will be able to not just dream bigger dreams, but make them come real. And that's why it's so important that the NAACP continue to fight on so many fronts at once and continue to work in such deep ways locally while pushing for such sweeping legislation nationally and sweeping legal victories nationally, because our responsibility is simply to ensure that every generation have better opportunities than the one that came before.
There are some people trying to take us backwards. Some are denying that systematic racism exists or that it continues to be a problem. Can you talk about the backlash and why we can't stop now?
I think the backlash in many cases, the right wing has bamboozled people into thinking that this is really an assault on them, that we're here and kind of calling, if you will, every white American racist. And the reason, therefore, that they should work to end racism is only if they feel like they have a problem. And that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about is fundamentally creating a country that works for everyone, country in which everybody's included, country in which old patterns of discrimination and abuse and executions, extrajudicial executions, lynchings, and their progeny. We move beyond all that. And then we get to a place where all of our children can truly enjoy a country, prosper in a country where no one is held back because of their color or the kink of their hair or the fact that they descend from slaves. And at the same time, quite frankly, that we also build a country, beyond the legacies of indentured servitude, beyond the legacies of gender oppression, that we build a country, in other words, that is not bound by the patterns established during colonialism, but rather is lifted by the aspirations of our children today. Our nation prospered in the 20th century because we, in a world that was becoming flat, we became flatter faster. And now we have to do the same thing in the 21st century. Now, some folks get worried. They see the right-wing backlash, and they see that as a sign that we may not win. I see it differently. I see it the way that my grandma sees it. When you're 105, you live on the balcony of history. And when you're my grandma, you grew up on a farm. And what she would tell you is, if 400 years of numeric white supremacy was about to end, in other words, if whites were about to become a minority too, you would expect a certain part of the white community would behave like my father and be like, great, finally our group has to get along demographically with at least one other group to succeed democratically. This is wonderful. But you would also expect that a large part of the white community would be scared about so much change and would lurch way to the right and become extreme in their politics. You see, my grandma, you talk about that, she goes back to the fox they had to deal with on her farm. And she'll tell you that fox was often a meek and mischievous character, as part of the ecology of the farm, making sure that the mouse population stayed down, among other things. But if you back that fox into a corner, it would become the most vicious animal you'd ever seen. And yet, what a farmer knows is that when a fox is backed into a corner, it's becoming at its most vicious. It's because the fox recognizes that fox's world's about to get turned upside down in a way the fox cannot control. And so you can actually take victory, if you will, in the viciousness of the fox. The fox gets fundamentally that the world is changing rapidly on that fox. And so, standing on the balcony of history with my grandmother, as the griot in our family, witnessed a century of history herself and carries with her stories from long before that, I choose to be optimistic. That it's always darkest before the dawn. And the fact that it's so dark right now means that dawn is coming.
We have a few questions from the audience. Recently, a local Central Indiana high school football player appeared on social media in blackface following his team's state championship victory. Some say he was mocking an opposing team's player. Could you talk about what blackface represents to the black community?
Blackface is a tradition of turning the color of many of us and all of our ancestors into a source of caricature and ridicule, and ultimately often depicting us as subhuman. Race, as we know it, was created in the mid-18th century. This country actually existed for over a century as a set of colonies before the modern notion of race was created. Race prior to that was about nationality. We Irish are a mighty race. We Scots are a mighty race. You saw that in the slave rolls itself. Slaves were counted by their nationality as humans. For example, in the 17th century. It's only in the mid-18th that they start to be counted, that we start to be counted, our ancestors start to be counted as Negroes, like cattle. And the whole kind of chattel, if you will, aspect of slavery is imposed on a very profound way where we are dehumanized and defined as being somewhere between man and monkey. Blackface rises out of that perception of the Black community, that we are subhuman, that we are these, unintelligent creatures stuck somewhere between man and monkey. It's a brutal technique to use to dehumanize an entire group. I think it's true. Oftentimes young people don't understand all of that. Young people, well, they're young and their brains aren't completely formed and they aren't completely educated. And yet there can be no tolerance for it. And if that needs to be a teaching moment, no matter what that young person's intentions were, then we better make sure that it's a teaching moment, because that tradition of dehumanizing our people, there can be no tolerance for.
What advice do you have for white people who want to be good allies of the NAACP and the civil rights movement?
You know, that often shows up in our personal lives first. We're at work, we're at church, and we want to be supportive of somebody who's different. For men, it could be being supportive of women. For whites, it be being supportive of blacks or people of color. My father, who's now 80 years old, has been active in the civil rights movement for 66 years as a white man. I asked him, what have you learned, Dad? What have you figured out? And he said, whenever I feel like I'm about to do something that a missionary might do, about to give advice, give somebody a chance, I stop. And I asked myself, well, what was done for me? He says, as a white man, he said, if I'm honest, there were a lot of people who backed me. He said, being backed is different than being given a chance. You give a chance, somebody has one shot. If they fail, they're done. So being backed is we expect you're not always going to get it right. We know you're going to trip and fall. And when you do, we'll give you a hand up and we'll dust you off and we'll send you on your way again. I've seen what that means as board member of startup companies, publicly traded companies in the Silicon Valley. 7 years as a tech investor. And I'll tell you what it looks like. What it looks like is this. A CEO might, young CEO, first-time CEO, given control of hundreds of millions of dollars of investor money over a period of a few years, very fast-growing company, stumbles and misspends tens of millions of dollars on a failed marketing strategy. And the board member suggests maybe we should fire him. And the chairman puts his hand on the table and says, yes, but the only question we need to ask is, knowing what he knows now, that he's misspent tens of millions of dollars, is he the best person for us to have leading the organization? In other words, being willing to even accept not $1 million education, not even a multi-million-dollar, but a multi-tens of millions of dollar education for that CEO, with the belief that they are a good person who learns quickly and will ultimately ensure everybody profits from the knowledge that they now have. Dad says that what he figured out for all these years is really the only way to really transform our society is for men, in the workplace, decide to back women the way that they were backed. Be honest, about how many shots they got. And for white folks, decide to back black folks. Don't just give somebody a shot, and please just don't give them advice. Back up. And if part of that backing is mentoring or teaching, absolutely. But first be sure that you really have their back. Know that they will stumble and fall. They will make mistakes. We are all human. But fundamentally, if we treat young, smart women, young, smart people of color, give them the same grace and faith that historically white men have given to other young white men in companies across our country, well, then we should expect similar results. We've got to break with the old sort of missionary, let's give them a shot. Let's see how it goes. When I was a young organizer in Mississippi, there was a phrase for that. Just give the boy enough rope to hang himself. That's not what we need anymore. We need, frankly, to just back each other, and we need to back people who are different than us if we're going to create an inclusive society.
Thank you, Ben, for joining us today and having such a candid conversation. We appreciate your contributions to the cause and wish you well in all of your future endeavors. Now, let's welcome back our president, Crystal Radcliffe.
Thank you, Ben, for your inspiring words and for your past leadership of the NAACP. Now it's my privilege to present some awards to individuals who have done outstanding work in our community. First is our President's Award. This individual organized a virtual public forum with the heads of Eskenazi Health, Community Health Network, and Indiana University Health to hold them accountable for reducing health disparities and ensuring that the Black community can get the care and treatment it deserves. This person also worked in partnership with the Marion County Health Department local schools, and other organizations to advocate for lead poisoning prevention measures. As chair of the branch's education committee, he leads many initiatives to protect our children. I'm pleased to give the President's Award this year to Gary Holland. Congratulations, Gary. I also want to recognize those who have become fully paid life members of the NAACP since 2019. We gained 28 new life members since 2019, and their names are shown on the screen. Thank you all for supporting the NAACP by becoming life members. Membership is the lifeblood of our organization. It provides financial support and makes our voice stronger. Later, Alenia Moore will talk about how you can join or renew your membership. We pause for a moment now to remember NAACP members who were lost since 2019. Please join me in a moment of silence as their names appear on the screen. Thank you. May the souls of these freedom fighters find eternal rest. Please welcome Vice President Tawan Garrett, who will present this year's Pathfinder Award.
Good evening, everyone. And again, thank you for viewing our virtual Christmas Freedom Fund. My name is Tawan Garrett, and I'm the Vice President of the Greater Indianapolis branch of the NAACP. As we continue our program and our theme of We Can't Stop Now, it is my honor to present the Pathfinder Award. The Pathfinder Award honors individuals who have created a path for others to follow and whose contributions have ensured justice within our community. This year's award goes to Mr. Stephen Scoop Jefferson. Steve Scoop Jefferson is an Emmy Award-winning journalist who, for more than 19 years, has covered the Indianapolis community on WTHR Channel 13. As one of the premier crime beat reporters, Steve has broken or reported on the Jared Fogle subway FBI investigation, the Breonna Taylor shooting death, and the George Floyd murder trial. However, even as a busy reporter, Steve still finds time to mentor countless radio and TV news proteges and serve as a tireless advocate for more diversity within the newsroom as a multiple-term president of the Indianapolis Association of Black Journalists. So even though Scoop may have moved on to warmer climates of Dallas, Steve has left some big shoes to fill within the Indianapolis media market. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce the NAACP 2021 Pathfinder Awardee, Mr. Stephen Scoop Jefferson.
Good evening, Indianapolis, all the way from Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. I am so grateful for this award. Thank you to the Indianapolis chapter of the NAACP. As a journalist, I never take it for granted when someone grants me time for an interview, and more importantly, their trust, especially when it gives a voice to the voiceless, or just helping someone seeking help or justice when they've been wronged, whether that wrong is intentional or not. There are dozens of others who deserve this award. I love Indianapolis, especially since I still have family there and friends just like you. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Tawan, and congratulations to Steve Jefferson. We miss you in Indianapolis and wish you well. Our next award is the Outstanding Achievers Award. An achiever is someone who accomplishes something, especially by superior ability, special efforts, or great courage. This year's award goes to Noah Malone. Noah is from Fishers, Indiana, and a student at Indiana State University. At age 13, he was diagnosed with a hereditary disease that causes him to lose most of his direct vision, making him legally blind. He turned to Bosma Enterprises, which helped him unlock his potential on and off the track. In 2019, Noah became the Indiana High School 200-meter state champion. He is now one of the only legally blind Division I track athletes in the nation. In September, Noah participated in the 2020 Summer Paralympics in Tokyo. He won silver medal in both the 100-meter and the 400-meter events, as well as a gold medal with hix teammates in the 4x100 relay. His memoir, Losing Vision, Not Dreams, reflects on my teenage years, is available for purchase. As Noah says, I wrote this book for anyone facing obstacles along their life's path. With focus, hard work, and a positive mindset, you too can stay the course and finish strong. Noah, congratulations on all your achievements. You are an outstanding achiever, and all of Indianapolis is proud of you.
I would like to start by thanking the Indianapolis NAACP. Thank you so much for allowing me to be the recipient of the Outstanding Achiever Award. This is a huge honor to me because the NAACP is the nation's most prestigious civil rights organization. This award also encourages me to be a prominent role in this community and help encourage others and be an advocate when times get hard. So thank you again so much. This award will always have a dear spot in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you again, Noah. Our final award is the Humanitarian Award. A humanitarian is a person actively engaged in promoting human welfare and social reforms. This year's award goes to Molly Simone Jeffers and Alan Bacon, who are co-founders of Gang Gang, a cultural development firm based in Indianapolis. Gang Gang was created in November 2020 to improve opportunities for Black artists in Indy. In just 1 year, they have organized the first Indianapolis Day of Healing and Mental Health, along with Pacers, Sports and Entertainment and Anthem, installed new urban murals for Lily's Day of Service, served as creative director for Swish during the NCAA's 2021 March Madness, launched Butter, a multi-day fine arts fair centered around celebrating Black visual art, and helped bring 18 artists together to create the Black Lives Matter mural downtown. In their first 3 years, they have plans to invest at least $100,000 in cultural startups, with 70% of the funds set aside for Black founders and Black-owned startups. As Molly Jeffers says, so much of the talk around racism is within the context of death and pain and anger, and rightfully so. But think about the Black experience and culture in our daily lives. It is also vibrant. It is full of food, laughter, overcoming color, praise, and dance. That's also the Black experience. And that's what we're uplifting through Gang Gang. Alan and Molly, congratulations for your work and receiving this year's Humanitarian Award.
Thank you to the NAACP for this recognition. We are truly humbled.
We launched our cultural development firm, Gang Gang, in November of 2020, and we've been blessed to have amazing opportunities to produce culture, promote culture, and preserve culture in Indianapolis and beyond.
It's an honor to receive this award, and it's an honor to do this work. Culture connects humanity, so to receive this award is even more special.
Thank you again to the NAACP. Thank you to our parents, to CICF, to all of our funders, to all of the creatives in this city and all of our partners. Thank you for your support, and let's keep going.
Thank you, Alan and Molly, and all of our award winners. You are all showing why we can't stop now. Thank you again for joining us this evening. Before we close our program, I'd like to introduce Alenia Moore, a member of our branch's executive committee. She is the founder of Ladies Under Construction and the president of More Out of Life Speaks, LLC, a life coaching business for teen girls and women.
Hello everyone, my name is Alenia Moore and I am your local chair for the Youth NAACP here in Indianapolis. Thank you so much for attending. The reason why I joined NAACP is because I didn't really know a lot as it related to NAACP as a youth, and I wanted to be that change that I wanted to see. And so I do a lot of work in the community with our young people, and so it is my goal and it is my duty to be able to be that leader for the young people for the NAACP. So that is the reason why I chose to become a part of NAACP. And I want to provide you some information on being able to not only be a member, but also be able to donate to the local chapter of the NAACP here in Indianapolis. Membership starts at $30 per year for adults. Youth membership starts as low as $10 per year. Women, we encourage you to add your $10 membership to Women in the NAACP. I encourage you to be a life member. For adults, life membership starts at the silver level for $750, payable in annual installments of $75 or more. Once you've completed your silver life membership, you are a member for life. You can also start to work on your gold life level. It's easy to join and renew your membership on our website. Just go to NAACP.org. That is INDYNAACP.org. And click on the box that says join or renew membership. That will take you to our online membership application. Now, by joining via our website, to ensure that your financial support goes to our branch, place in branch number 3053. You can also donate additional funds to support the branch's work. Just click on donate, and also you can donate via PayPal or include an additional donation to your membership application. And again, thank you so much for joining today. I hope you had a great event. Thank you.
Let us pray. O God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Dear Lord, we ask right now that you would continue to watch over this organization, the NAACP. We ask that you would bless it internationally, nationally, and locally, Father. We ask that you would bless these leaders as they strive to do your will. We ask that you would continue to watch over them and keep your divine intervention in their lives. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I would like to thank all of you for taking time to attend the 51st Freedom Fund gathering of the Greater Indianapolis NAACP. Let's hope our next gathering will be in person. Special thanks to the Freedom Fund Committee and to our chair and co-chair, Adarius Gardner and Cordelia Lewis Burks, that planned tonight's event, as well as Hirons and Company and Frontrunner Media for making it possible. And thanks again to all our speakers and special guests. Please don't forget to join the NAACP and donate to the Freedom Fund at indynaacp.org. Happy holidays to you all. Normally I'd advise you to be safe traveling home, but I hope you are somewhere warm and safe right now. Until next year, good night and keep up the fight.